Hello, my name is Andrew Gao, and this is my course reflection about HCDE 313, Introduction to User Research. In this video, I reflect about my quarter-long user research project, the methodologies I used, what I learned, and what the importance of user research is to me in the future. In the beginning, I decided to make my research topic about bubble tea shops and how their spaces are used by customers because it's something that I'm personally interested in as a bubble tea enthusiast. The goal of this research was to use the findings to come up with design ideas that can improve the customer experience while they stay in the bubble tea shop. I used three methodologies for my research. I first conducted a field study using the deep hanging out method to observe customers in a bubble tea shop, while also immersing myself in the environment. This was to get a first-hand experience about the topic and context, and get ideas of what I can focus on in my research. Then I interviewed participants about their experiences and opinions about bubble tea shops to gain specific user motivations, values, and needs. Finally, I made an online survey to collect a larger scale of data that focused on previous research findings that I wanted to validate. Being an experienced bubble tea customer myself, letting bias affect my research is an issue that I tried to avoid for this project, whether it's in what and how I observe customers in the bubble tea shops, how I phrase certain questions in the interviews and survey, or how I analyze data. I tried to keep my biases away. It's something that I kept in mind throughout all of the methodologies. This is so that my findings can be as accurate as possible. Ethics is also something that was important to keep in mind throughout this whole research project because it's necessary for research to be done ethically. I made sure that I was ethically observing, interviewing, and surveying participants so that I don't infringe on their rights and boundaries. I learned that it's important to keep participants informed enough so that they don't become uncomfortable and to maintain a good relationship with them. In general, my data from all of the methodologies were all analyzed thematically in some way to gain insight on the most salient key themes that the data shows. For the field study, observations were analyzed with an affinity diagram. Interviews transcripts were coded and thematically analyzed. Survey data were visualized to support the themes. Now onto the actual findings and analyses of the research. First, I found from my field observations how bubble tea shops were a social-friendly place where groups of customers were more prevalent than customers who were alone in the spaces. This was what I gathered from sitting down at a table, observing customers and taking notes on my laptop as I enjoyed my bubble tea. Because the bubble tea shop I went to was crowded for most of my sessions, and it was in general a pretty big place, I struggled with what kinds of things I would focus on my observations on without also being biased. Having 3 sessions helped me, and I think it was easier as I became more familiar with the method. What was really fun for me while doing this methodology was being able to act as a participant as well because of doing the deep hangout method. It was nice to get my own bubble tea, choose where I wanted to sit, and use the space for my own purposes. It made me reflect on what the participants could be thinking about the space, what kinds of decisions they might make, and how they might make those decisions. I think this method went well in this aspect. From my interviews, I learned that some of my findings from the field study were supported by what participants have responded with, such as customers going in groups and socializing. In addition to that, I learned about a value that customers have when being in the bubble tea shop spaces, which is cleanliness. Most participants have mentioned how unclean spaces can make for an unpleasant experience in the spaces. In general, I struggled with conducting my interviews because it was challenging coming up with relevant follow-up questions on the fly, based on what the interviewee has said. However, I think the semi-structured interview worked well because I was able to plan out some questions that I wanted to focus on, but it also allowed room for new questions that could go deeper on what the participant has responded with. From recording the interviews, transcribing them, and analyzing the data, I learned how time-consuming the whole process was. I spent hours listening to recordings and tapping out each word that was said. Reading through the transcripts, coding them, and finding the salient themes also took longer than I thought it would. In the end, it was worth it to understand the data. The surveys gave validation to my previous findings that a larger sample of participants socialize in bubble tea shops in small groups and that cleanliness is important. With more participants responding, the more accurate the findings can be, which is good when informing design implications. Getting people to take my survey was more challenging than I thought. Recruiting participants that fit my criteria within my small social circle was only part of the solution. I had to try for more of a snowball effect by asking participants to spread the survey to people who fit the criteria and so forth to collect more data. Other than that, recruiting went well as I got enough data. What was really interesting when I was reading the survey data was reading the open-ended question and responses. The variety of how people answered as well as similarities was interesting. Some even had some funny answers, which made the processing of survey data more amusing than if there wasn't any. For each methodology, I wrote a report about my goals, approach, results, and design implications based on the research finding. It was nice to be able to gather all my results, analyze them, and put them together to come up with design ideas that can improve something. I could learn how to write about my research and how the research can be used meaningfully. There was also the video presentation about the whole research project. It was to present about the research project, its purpose, the results, and what comes out of it. It was bringing all of my work together into one cohesive presentation. I was able to practice being able to give a presentation to an intended audience of professional peers and managers. This course has really taught me a lot about user research, what are some of the ways to do it, and what its purpose is. It's made me reflect about how valuable user research is in the process of user-centered design. I learned about some good strategies and what I could do to improve for the future. I've learned that user research is important in design because it's a way to find out what users really need to improve an experience. It can give insight to design opportunities and ideas. In the future, I anticipate that I will at least appreciate user research as something necessary to make an effective design, if not conducting my own user research in my own career. Overall, this was a fun and interesting and meaningful project where I learned a lot about user research, some of the methodologies, and how to use data to inform design decisions. I'm eager to explore more and dive deeper into user research in the future. Thank you for watching.